So now let's take a look at implementing this balance rig onto a character we have set up already. So I've brought it in here with a few little changes just to size of the cube and whatnot. And I have a rig character here. And all you need to do to use a character on this rig is to just take your feet controllers and basically make them a child of this cube object. Computer is taking a second here, so bear with me. So you just got to take your foot controllers and bring it down, and you may have to rotate it a little bit to match it if your cube has been rotated already. And I will move this one out a bit. And now I can just go in, select both my legs, and drag them under the cube. I can get rid of the previous null objects that I used before, as they're not needed in this case. Then I'll just bring my hips down a little bit so the feet rest on it. Hit play, and you can see it's already working, but because I brought this into a new scene, I need to reset my aim constraint here. So I will have it looking at my pelvis controller here, which is part of a spline IK. That way I can still control the whole thing overall with my FK controller. So now if I click play, I bring them over. You see the board interacts a bit with it, and it's a very simple process to bring the balance rig into a scene with your rig character. So now let's take a look at how we can try to enhance this a bit. One of the ways we can enhance this rig is by setting up a method to automatically move the hip controllers to sort of counterbalance the cube here, or the tilting action basically. And we can do that very simply with using a spring constraint. So I'm going to create a null object, and I will bring it to about the level where my hip controller is. And that's pretty close, so we'll just say about right there. Call this spring target and make it a child of the cylinder. Now I'll go into my hips FK controller and add a constraint tag. Now the reason why I'm doing it on my FK controller as opposed to the object that I put for the aim constraint is because this spring controller would cause the hips to just be doing this, and it could actually stretch way out of proportion. Whereas if I have it on these controllers, the whole body will move with it, and it looks, in my opinion, just a little bit more natural. Either way is fine. This is just a preference of mine to have the whole body kind of move with it. So go into the constraint tag and choose spring. Choose to add a target. And we only need position here because basically the cylinder is moving back and forth on its position, or on its x-axis, and it won't be rotating the null object, it's just going to be moving it. So we need the position to drive our spring constraint. And we drag and drop our spring target into the target field, hit play, and you can see the hips already kind of going with it. Now the great thing is that the hips are moving and the cube is aiming at the hips, so as he moves over this way, you'll see the cube begin to point over that way as well. So you have a nice automated animation here. It's not the most realistic looking thing, but it gets the job done. And if it's too much spring there, you could always lower it with the strength slider here. And the last thing I'm going to show you is how to swap out this cylinder for a different object, say a sphere, for example. So I'll create a sphere, scale it down just a bit, bring it down to where it's just about touching our cube. And you want to make sure it has plenty of segments, otherwise it's going to look very jumpy and faceted as your null object moves around. It's going to be jumping to sharper angles at a lower polygon setting, or lower segment settings. So I bump mine up to about 72 here. And then you take your object, make it a child of the null object, drag your spring target as a child of the sphere, and take the vibrate tag from the cylinder to the sphere. And you might also want to add a amplitude for the Z axis as well. That way the ball will move both forward and backward and left and right. So the last thing we have to do is click on our constraint tag and set it up here. Go into our clamp constraint and drop our sphere in. Now you notice it kind of jumped up a bit here. You could just change the distance down to where it's right on top of the sphere and just as we need it. So I'll move this here to get it a little bit straighter. And another thing you can do is in the aim constraint you can turn on the B or the P rotation as well. This will allow it to rotate both left and right, so this way on the B axis, but it'll also allow you to go forward and backward as the ball moves forward and backwards. So very simply, you now just click play and you can see he's now bouncing and turning a bit on our ball here. It's just very simple. It's just a matter of swapping out one object for another and taking one tag and putting it on another. So you can see this rig is very simple to set up, very easy to use, and it's very versatile and flexible. So hope you've enjoyed it and have fun with this one.